So basically, what I would like for you to do is just kind of tell me your story. I like to
Okay.
use the platform right now to talk about mental health. I mean, you've had an extraordinary journey, and I know there were times where you felt like you weren't gonna make it, or things were too hard, um, or you had imposter syndrome. So I just kind of wanted to, talk about the journey, talk about from when you were a kid to now where you are today.
It's weird because when I was growing up, I never thought about being a professional athlete. Small town, and you just go out and you play sports just for the fun of it. Uh, what season it was is what sport you played. If it was basketball season, you played basketball, baseball, football, track, whatever it was, you did it. And that's the thing about small towns. And it was no AAU as far as basketball. So small towns is what you did. You play whatever sport the season, and you want to be with your friends because we all did it. And it got to a point where, for as me, it got frustrating because my mom wouldn't let me play football. She was like, "You too skinny." So I didn't play football, but I did a lot of other things. Like if it was football season, I just played basketball with friends and met up at the park and played. But I never had any dreams or aspirations to go to the NBA because to me that wasn't reality. I felt like reality was what I could see and what I could touch and what I could experience. And what my experience was seeing my dad in the army. And I didn't want to go into the military because my dad was like, you need to go in the military. And so the next step was my mom, who was a teacher. So growing up, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to educate, but I also wanted to coach because I had a love for every coach that I came across. My elementary school coach, Coach Simpson. I remember one day he came to the playground. We was playing basketball, and I'm killing on the playground. He says, "You can't go right anymore." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "But I can't go left." He said, "That's my point." And then again, middle school coach Barry was like, why are you passing the ball? You need to take over now. You need to be exceptional. But it's just basketball. But we're trying to win. And we want to win. So you need to burden it, the load. And then I get into high school. My high school coach changed my shot. He changed my attitude about everything. And he says, you're gonna have to dominate. And then when you dominate, like my middle school coach told me, then you got to make the people around you better by getting them in the right position and tell them. And that's when they always talk about a village raising kids, that's what a small town is. It's really a village. And if you got responsible adults in your life, they're gonna help raise you. And that's how my journey started until I got to college. And it's weird because when I got scholarship offers, I just wanted to go to college to get a free education. I wanted to get out of my mom and dad's pocket, and because I know how expensive it was. I'm like, my mom, you've been removed from college 20 years, and you still paying on your education. I'm like, wow, these bills are crazy. So that was my whole mindset. And it wasn't until my sophomore year in college where I was like, okay, a report came out and ranked me as one of the top small forwards in the country. I'm like, oh, and everybody was like, man, you could go to the NBA. And then that's when my whole focus shifted. And it's weird because I just recently graduated from the University of Alabama. And if you looked at my transcript, I just started laughing because my first 2 years it was like, a 3.0. And then after my sophomore year, it's like I started, putting more time in basketball and taking less time for education. And I said, that's the dice you got to roll because, if you get to the NBA, that's life-changing money. That's life-changing situation. And for me, that's just what I did. And even though I still took the number of classes to stay eligible, I still passed the classes. I just took a less workload. So it took me longer to graduate. But for me, for me, I have a lot of kids now. I run into, and they 5, 6 years. Oh, my dream is to get in the NBA. I want to do that. I said, yeah. I said, what's your backup plan? I said, is this a bust? I'm like, you can't have that because life is too precious. And like now you said this is bust, you're gonna be so heartbroken if you don't make it that you got to have a backup plan. And I said, my backup plan was the NBA. That wasn't even my plan A or plan B. Plan A was to be a math teacher. Plan B was to be a coach. Plan C was If I go to NBA, I go to NBA. So it was just one of those things where I just worked hard at everything I did. I listened to a lot of people that I felt was smart in my life, that was trying to do positive things in my life, and I just kept it moving. And it was nothing that I really, any obstacles that I really had to overcome until I became an adult. And because your journey is special when you're young, and you don't, you know, it's the mindset are totally different. I appreciate the mindset of these kids nowadays because they're so headstrong. They don't let anything get in their way. And and it's a lot of kids like that. Like, think about it. The NBA is one of those special jobs. It's not like football, it's not like baseball. We only have 15. So it's an elite group. And if you can get in that elite group, it's something special. And it's a million, 10, I should say a billion other kids, across the world trying to get into your position. Just think about it. You got guys all over the world that's playing in the NBA. It's not like, think about it, you don't find too many people across the world playing football. You might have some in baseball, certain countries in baseball, but think about it, it's like Asia, Europe, Russia. It's so many people that play basketball. So it's a elite club. And as I worked through my life to try to get better, and I got to the NBA, it was like, okay, I'm here, but shoot, for me, that's when the journey got tough. Because you get a family, you have to be responsible for other people other than yourself. Because I tell people, when you're in college, man, that's the most fun time. You ain't got to be responsible for them but yourself. And you got if you're an athlete, you really ain't got to do nothing but show up to class and show up to practice. You got to worry about food. You got to worry about books. People got to buy all this stuff and run to the student centers and get their books. That stuff is brought to you. That's the fun part of being an athlete. But when I got to the NBA, that's when the journey got difficult for me because now I got to be responsible. My first year was easy because it was just me. And in my second year in the league, I had my kids were being born. And the toughest thing ever for me was going through a whole season, not knowing if my daughter was gonna, live or die. And it was hard. And it was a story that in this day and age, everybody would have known. It wasn't something I shared with anybody. A few people knew, coaches knew, because you have to let them know in case something happens, you need to, not come to practice or go, or take care of your personal matters. But it was a hard journey for me. And it was a journey that my wife and I kept to ourselves. My wife at the time kept to ourselves because we didn't want anybody to feel sorry for us. And we just made sure we stayed in contact with the people we needed to and the doctors. And it was weird because it was a lot of nights. We played in the NBA finals, playing New York. I was spending the night at a hospital and people didn't even notice. I was spending the night across the street because my wife makes me go across the street and get some rest because you got a game, but and it helped me focus. It helped me release a lot of anger because when you have a sick child, you get angry. And a lot of parents don't know they're angry. I knew I was angry because I had a avenue to let it out on. I can go out and play basketball, elbow someone. I know I'm not saying I'm dirty, but sometimes you gotta release that anger. And you can go out there and just hit somebody. Not I don't mean physical with fists, but you can just hit somebody to help, you know, try to relieve some of that tension. And I think for me, that first couple of years in the NBA was just a tension relieving moment that actually helped me focus and become the person that I am. As far as when it comes time to step on that court, you can really really focus and block out all the outside noise, because the outside noise, they can get in your mental and mess you up. It can have you going in for a layup, thinking about something else. You could be sitting on I came off the bench for the majority of my career after the Houston, and it can just, you can sit there and all of a sudden you just space out, and 10 minutes in the game can go by. You don't have a clue what happened because your mind is somewhere else, because you're thinking about what's the most important thing in your life, your kids and your family. You're not thinking about the sport you're playing. So it's a lot of mental things that you have to deal with as an athlete. And for me, you have to find the right avenue to release that tension. You got to have the right support system. I think my ex-wife was she was a great support system. My mom, my dad, they were always there for me. Her family was there for her. So it helped deal with a lot of stuff. I remember one time when I this is the first time ever I yelled at my mom. She's like, get it out. You need to. I can see it's pent up, and it's weird how your parents can see something that's bothering you when you can't even see it, and it's like because they've been knowing you for the moment you was spit out, you know. So and you know, after that, she just says, "Come here, bring it and give me a hug." My mom is so special to me, you know. And she's still you know, very educated woman. You know, she taught for 25 plus years, and my dad served in the military for, you know, 25 plus years. So you got the discipline around you from them, and they got the smarts around you. So the journey was long, and it's still an ongoing process. But it was challenging. But every challenge made you stronger.
Mm, wow. Very inspirational.
Mm.
Very inspirational. I do remember um about your daughter because I remember my parents went to the funeral. I do remember
Mm-hmm.
that. And it's so crazy how in life you'll feel like, everything is going so good, and then,
Yeah.
adversity hits you and things like that. So when you were going through this adversity, trying to hop over these hurdles,
Mhm.
what was it that lifted you up just to
You
keep
know,
going?
I it's all about your support system. You know, I had great friends. You know, your dad being one, and I had a lot of people that are around me that was always saying, "Man, you know, come on, let's go." You know, work. My really close friends, they knew the way to release energy was like, "Come on, let's go get some shots up. Let's go work out." You know, these are ways. You know, you're frustrated. It's amazing how you can, you know, lift 200 pounds with more force and more anger. And I had great friends that knew who I was, and they knew what could
Oh, hold on. I think the sound just went out. Hello? No, I can't hear you now.
it's not on my end.
Okay, there it is. You're back.
You got it back?
Uh,
Okay. Might have been the internet. Yeah. But for me, I started over, but I just had a great support system. I had a lot of people around me who knew me. My best friend in college, he knew me. Your dad knows me. And they knew the outlets that I needed to bring me back down to reality. Because I say that in the sense of when you frustrated with things that are going on in your life, you're it's like an out of body experience. You're somewhere else, and you have to be brought back into that inner circle. And your inner circle is the ones who can bring you back into that circle. And for me, I've always surrounded myself with, you know, people that I knew had my best interests at heart. Nobody who's going to try to use me. Nobody who's just, you know, they would stop. They literally would stop me from doing something stupid or silly. And that's what you got to have, because you can't have a bunch of yes men around you, because once you get into a position of power, and I say power, I don't mean that in a glorified way. I mean, when you have money and you have a name, you have power. You have the power to do certain things, and that a lot of people cannot do. And when you're in a position of power, people have a tendency to just do what you say do. And but I never had friends like that. You know, I had friends that say, you know what, there's consequences to what you can ready to do. And that's what you gotta have. You can't have yes men. I look around now, you got so many guys that are in power that they have a bunch of yes men. Oh, you want to go, you know, speed down the highway? Let's go do it. You know, you want to go, you know, stay out all night and drink before a game? Come on, let's go do that, because that's what. And my friend's like, no, dude, you got a game. No, no, we ain't doing that. No, someone trying to buy you. No, we ain't doing that. We got a game. And you have to have friends that when you out and about like that, that doesn't let you be the villain. What I mean by that is you have people that want to, you know, buy you drinks. You have people that want to talk to you, and you have to have them to, you like say no, you know, and that way you're not the villain, they're the villain, and they don't go out and says, oh, this person is that butthole, you know, this person is, you know, a wanker or whatever, you know. I don't want to use the other terms for that, but you know, so it's good in the sense that you have people that basically have your back. And for me, I had that during a lot of difficult times. Even, you know, outside of, you know, the family times, just think about this. You in a city that you love, and all of a sudden you're getting traded to another city. You have to have someone who's able to, you know, help you out, get you in the right position, and to basically pick up your life and move somewhere else. And that's happened. If you some guys are lucky, you only stay, in one place or two places for the rest of your whole career. I was in three great places, and and they were, even though I'm, staying in Houston, and how I got to meet you, and then moving to San Antonio, still had a great support system. Houston was only, a couple hours drive away. LA was a difficult one. I mean, when I first got to LA, I didn't know what to do. I was a little country boy. Now you're in LA. Houston is a big city, and LA is even bigger city with more distractions. And so I was very, very fortunate. I came across some people that were, great support systems. And it's weird because, these are the type of people that's going to always have your back. And, you think, okay, once you leave LA, they're not going to be your friends, but these people stayed my friends. And eventually my cycle comes back to LA. Now I'm back in LA working, and that same group is still there supporting me and having my back, and and making sure, I'm too old to do anything silly or stupid now, but making sure they have my back, and make sure, we keep a line of communication open.
Wow. So, can you pinpoint to me one of your darkest times
Mm.
during your journey?
Oh, um, I've had a few dark times. If I can, I'm a, playing basketball. I'm gonna just talk about the dark time of basketball, then I'll go to another one. I remember, as I said earlier, about having to pick up your life and get traded. I'm going into my fifth season in with the Houston Rockets. Coming off two championships in 4 years, had one of my best seasons ever, and then you get traded to Phoenix, and Phoenix was not a place I wanted to be. And I'll be honest with you, just didn't have the support system I needed. And it wasn't, and it's just going to sound weird, but sometimes when you leave the house, you want to see people who look like you. And being in Phoenix, I didn't see many people that looked like me, and it wasn't really a comfortable situation. And I know that sounds weird coming from a guy who's from Alabama, who's come from a small town, who went to the University of Alabama, but you still though, and you have groups that look like you, and it makes you comfortable. I just didn't find that in Phoenix, and I was never comfortable there. And then, as far as on my job, I didn't like the people that were around me. I didn't like the coaching staff. I thought, because from playing them during the season, you saw how soft they were. And when I say that, I don't mean everybody that I played with. I mean, some of the guys, they were soft. And when you go to practice, they get a little hangnail. They don't want to practice. And it wasn't a basketball culture that I was used to. When we were at Alabama, we played hard. When I was in high school, we played hard. It wasn't that, a little injury. If it ain't, something where you can't move, you out there. And I just wasn't used to that. And here you are having your star players sitting out because their feelings are hurt. And that just didn't come across with me. And I let the organization know. And it was like, oh, we don't do that right here. I said, that's why we went down 0-2 and we beat y'all. That's why we were down 3-1 and we beat y'all, because y'all soft. The whole mentality has to change around this camp. And it just didn't work out with me there. And the dark time came where I was just mad because, getting into it with the coaching staff, now they're punishing me by not playing me. And then it just got real, frustrating when that's when I had the incident where I threw the towel in Danny Ainge's face. It was just not a good situation for me. And I'm very, very lucky that didn't, snowballing into something else. I got traded to the Lakers, and sometimes you need a new start, and that was a new start for me in a new place, and that was just a dark time for me. It was so dark that I wasn't playing. I became a totally different person, and I was staying out late. I met a friend at this restaurant, and he was a bartender. I used to just go in there and sit there and talk to him. I wouldn't even call him a friend because I don't remember his name. I don't think I ever knew his name, but I would just sit there, and they had good food, and I would eat and drink. By the time I got traded to the Lakers, I wasn't in shape because I wasn't playing, and I was eating and I was drinking, and it was just a bad situation. And I'm not saying I became an alcoholic or anything like that, but I'm just saying when you're an athlete, you can't drink because it dehydrates you and stuff like that. So, but I'm like, I ain't playing, so what do? I'm have a little cocktail, maybe go home and sleep better. So that was a dark time. But But that just other than that, I had no dark times when it comes to sports. 7 championships and 16 seasons. Even though my career didn't end like I wanted to. I lost to the Lakers and playing for San Antonio, where I helped them win 2 championships, and all of a sudden, my last little seasons, I finished with a couple of DNPs, and I'm Big Shot Bob, and I don't get DNPs in the playoffs, and that was just a slap in the face for me, and it made me a little bitter, and it came out in some interviews that I did, and in some other situations that happened, but that was those two. Even though that wasn't a dark time, because you can't get mad at what coaches feel like they have to do to win, and for me, your ego comes into play sometimes when you realize, do you know who I am and what I did in the playoffs, and you're going to sit me over here and not give me a chance to do something. That was a ego dark time, I should say. But the darkest time ever was losing my daughter. Um, Here it is, for her being born with a rare disorder, 1p36 deletion syndrome, which means she was missing part of her first chromosome, and she had a lot of health issues, and she fought for 17 years to stay in this world, and she inspired me a lot. From the simple fact is, if let's say you wake up in a bad day, in a bad mood, and then you realize she's walking around here, can only say a few words, has to be fed through a feeding tube, has breathing problems, but she's happy. There's no freaking way a guy who can do a million things more than she can shouldn't be happy. And so that was one of the things that was for me inspirational thing, because looking at her and understanding her situation, and but when losing her was a really really dark time for me, because you got to think about it. It was your career is over with, something that you love and held dearly to your heart. That's over with. Then you end up getting a divorce, and then your daughter died. It was a really dark time for me, in the sense that um, you had all these avenues that made you happy gone, all gone around the same time. And so when you do that, you end up doing things you don't normally do. I would go out, you know, thank the Lord I'm still here, because there's some times I'm not even gonna lie that I go out and just sit at a bar. Next thing you know, I'm 10, 6 drinks in, and I do some stupid shit by driving home. And it was because you go through a period where you don't even care about yourself anymore or care about anything, but you got to understand you cannot do that, because what you would do can affect so many other people. Like, let's say if I'd have went out and drove home drunk and crashed into someone and killed someone, kill their child. Now they're in the situation I am. Now they might go out and do the same thing I did, and that's another snowball effect. So, and then you have all these things, and you have all these situations that pop up, and for me, it was just it became a point where I told myself, you have other kids. You can't feel sorry, because you can feel sorry for yourself, but you got to respect your surroundings and respect yourself. And for me, it was like, I got to be here for my other kids, because they need me. It's not fair for me to give up because I lost my daughter. So I changed I really basically just changed my lifestyle again. I started trying to be more positive. I started back working out. I started back going to the gym. I stopped, I watched my diet. I stopped drinking as much. I still like to have a cocktail here and then, but it's not like going out and slamming down 10 and trying to get someone to take you home, or take a cab home because you're too drunk to drive. And it was a very very hard and dark time when those three things happen. And you have to have, I get back to the support system. My support system was there for me, but they didn't know that it was really hurting me, in the sense like, come on, man, let me take you out. Let's have a drink. I know you hurting. Let's, but alcohol doesn't always, solve the issue, just mask the issue. And it got to the point where I got back healthy. And the crazy part about it is, once I got back healthy, I made new friends. I went to the gym, and I made, my basketball crew, because I stopped playing basketball after I retired. And Brandon, Emery, and Steve were three guys. We used to meet up at the gym every day and play one-on-one. And the crazy part is we all became really good friends. And 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 the really crazy part about that is Steve ended up being a pastor. And he became a really close friend of mine. He's a confidant. He actually, remarried my current wife and I. So that's how strong of a person he came in my life. And it's always weird how God puts you in certain positions, and he challenged you. Everybody says, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle, but he challenges you to see how mentally strong you can be and to see if you're going to move on. And I think that's what life is all about. It's about challenges. And the biggest challenge in the darkest time was, having the result and deal with, the passing of my daughter. And it made me, it made me a better person. It made me a more compassionate person. It's because there's some times when you go back to being a person of power, you're not as compassionate because you can't really, you know, deal with stuff or don't want to deal with it. You don't want to say, okay, you can't do it. Well, I did it this way. You should be able to do it my way. And that's why I always tell people, like, the really great basketball players can't become coaches because they don't understand. You might have the work ethic, but you always realize God gave you a lot more talent. There's a lot of people who had the work ethic, but God didn't give them that talent. And people always expect them to be like they were. And so that doesn't happen. And I know I just shifted on you, but it's just how it is. I just think that you have to be mentally strong and you have to understand when you do need help, get help. You need to, I know people say, well, go talk to a therapist, go talk to a therapist, go talk to a best friend, go to talk to a stranger, and I think part of me, the reason I was drinking so much, my daughter, probably because, that's what bartenders pretty much do. You talk to them, you don't care. You talk to them, you tell them your problems, but then I realized, nah, that ain't working my way. And then I think for me, meeting Steve and him being a pastor and having the ability to know that he's not going to judge me for the mistakes I made, and he's not going to judge me for the right things I've done. He's just going to judge me for who I am. And I think that was one of the paths that, that helped me after everything, after that dark time, because when you talk about dark times, it can get no darker than losing a child, and then because we all, that saying is you're supposed to be here longer than your children are, and they're supposed to mourn you, not the other way around.
Mm, powerful,
Mm,
powerful, powerful, powerful.
mm.
Um, so what would be your advice to current NBA players? Because I mean, you see, there's a
Yeah,
lot going on with mental health and people speaking
yeah.
out, and so for someone who knows the game forward and backwards, what would you tell current NBA players about mental health and taking care of themselves?
For me, I would tell people to find someone to talk to. Don't, we as athletes, as men, sometimes, I know there are female athletes, but I'm talking about athletes who are men. We have a tendency to think that we have to, shoulder everything, and that's not the case. It's no harm in going to talk to somebody. And the crazy thing about it is the NBA and these teams have so many avenues to help you, and you just got to ask. And that's the thing about us. Sometimes we don't want to ask because we're so prideful, like, oh, I can do it myself. I learned that a long time ago. I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask for help, because all you can do is say no. If you say yes, I'm going to be better off. If you say no, I'm be on the same plane and keep it moving. Just ask someone else. And that's why I think the biggest advice I would have to tell any athlete, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid that someone telling you no. There's so many people in this world that's been told no, and you know what? When someone told you no, it's just, oh, you wipe the slate clean, you keep moving until you get the answer, you won't. And I mean that is for a positive thing. So I just look at the people that the NBA has and the athletes, the people around them. Say, if this person isn't providing anything positive in your life, you know, don't have them in your life, because you're in a position of power, you're in a position of notoriety, and especially with social media now, you can't have any negative, because you want to move forward. You want to have people respect you. You want to have a position to influence people. And there's so many guys out there that don't even realize that they're being watched, not by just little kids, but by adults, by companies, by anything that can, like, either do something positive in your life. So stop trying to be Billy Badass and be, cocky. Just be, a good, decent human being, a person that you would want your child or your kids, your nephews, your nieces, or whatever that want to follow you and be like you. And that's, I think, now I would look at social media and look at all these athletes. They always trying to be individuals, which I appreciate. They're always trying to do something different, which I appreciate. But at the end of the day, use your platform to try to inspire, and use your platform to try to educate and help people, you know, around you in your community, because the athletes have a powerful voice. And I look back at when I played and wish that we would have had the platform that they have now, because they can use their voice for good. We couldn't really use our voice because of the afraid of being blackballed. So many players that spoke out about this and that, and next thing you know, it has that question: what happened to? And back then, that's every athlete didn't want to have that question. But whatever happened to Robert Horry? Oh, you remember he didn't stand for the flag, and this happened. Oh, he took a knee, and he spoke out on Black Lives Matter, and at a time when you couldn't. So now these athletes can. So I just say use your platform. It's weird because I think every athlete should consider themselves Spider-Man, and what Uncle Ben told Spider-Man, with with great power comes great responsibility. And I think every athlete should use it accordingly, and try to help their communities and help do whatever they can do. I know it might not be 100 people like say LeBron, but hell, you can help 10 people, which is still good.
Mhm. Just listening to you, this question popped in my head. What do you think journalists can do different? Because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I feel like
Uh,
journalists are a little aggy. I feel like they add to the fire. So especially as a sports journalist going into this field, what can we do different to help with these athletes and their mental health and just how they go about talking to the media, period?
Well, I was very fortunate when I got to LA. Houston didn't really have a large media market, but when I got to LA, the market was huge, and I made two good friends in the media, Jay Adonde and Brad Turner. And I remember one time after a game where I was really upset about something, and I said something. Brad Turner said, "Wait." He told the media, "I said, Rob, do you really want to say that? Hold on. He's mad right now." He had my back, and it was funny. And I don't even think he remembers that, but that stuck in my mind, that a media person stopped me in the heat of the moment and made me think about what I was saying. And I was like, no, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. You're right. You're right. And because you have to have people like that around. I know some media would probably I would have went ahead and wrote it anyway, because the bad stuff is what really sells. Let's be honest. Everybody want to know the dirt on people. That's just who we are as a society. But you have you have a majority of the media out there who not trying to do that. They just want to get the story right. And I understand that. But for me, I think for media, it's not. I don't think it falls on the media. It falls on the individual. If the media sees something, I think they should go. Let's just say if you saw something, you should go to someone else to go to the athlete, because athletes sometimes, if the person in the media says, "Yo, I'm seeing some tales," like let's just say I see something in you that I saw in my brother who had mental health. The athlete's gonna look at you like you're crazy, like, "Oh, you're just trying to get a story." But if you do it anonymously and go to their PR person and say, "Hey, this, and this, I'm not trying to write about it. I'm just trying to make you aware," and then you should go back to the athlete, something like that. I know athletes would be more receptive of that, so I don't think anybody, would take it as a negative. But and then if you look on the flip side of it, stop for the media is talk more about the good things they do instead of the bad things they do, because there's so many athletes that do charity work during the off season. There's so many athletes that go to hospitals and stuff. And you don't find out about this stuff until, something tragic happens to them. And I know a lot of them don't want you to talk about it, but they don't want you to talk about the other stuff, but they do the bad stuff, but sometimes the media do. Like if you don't want, let's say I'm going down to the children's hospital, I'm doing something, I don't want you to talk about it. Damn that, talk about it, because it's something good. But if I went down here and smacked my rifle around and said, don't talk about it, you're going to talk about it, So if I tell you not to talk about something, do it anyway, especially if it's good, because that's just going to make the athletes um, light, his light shine brighter. And I think the media has to do that. And that's one of the things that I look at ESPN and Fox and all these major sports outlets, and they run out of material to talk about. To me, I say you run out of material to talk about. You replay this over and over. Why not take Sundays or Saturdays or whatever day it is and compile stories about the great things these athletes are doing? It doesn't have to be a LeBron James. You can go and take Joe Schmo, who's giving back to he's giving out turkeys to his family or this community in a little small town. You can have news media outlets send someone down to film that and put a compilation of these things together so people can see. And then you never know, that might touch the heart of some big CEO in a firm that he want to reach out. It's that trickle down effect. But no, they want to rerun all these things. No, rerun something where we can spotlight someone and the athlete. It doesn't have to be a professional athlete. It could be, let's say you have so many, from doing my podcast, and the producers, and they bring up these kids that help out in the community, who are athletes, who do this, spotlight that. Instead of like, somebody came down, they saw him, snatch something from his wife, or she had this and that, the negative stuff. They need to have a happy hour, instead of, and I don't mean like drink, I mean a happy hour where spotlight the good things that these athletes do. And I ain't talking about just professional. Who gives a damn what LeBron does? Because we all don't know what LeBron does, because his social media platform takes care of that. But go ahead and talk about the guys that aren't the top 8 guys, the guys who making $100,000 but still taking their time and $20,000 of that $100,000 and giving back to the community. Because we know LeBron doesn't really need no help. You don't need to keep talking about him. He has the background. You don't need to keep talking about Brett Favre or Peyton Manning, all these guys. Talk about Joes and Schmoes who really, because those to me, and I'm gonna be honest, I get in trouble for saying it, but those are to me who really give a damn about their community, because they don't have the assets as those guys. They're really giving back because they want to. Not saying that the other guys don't want to, but it's a lot easier for those guys to give back than it is for the smaller guys to give back. So in my opinion, that's what the media should do in order to help these athletes, because the positive things, not the negative things. I know we was talking about the mental health part of it, but it all comes together, because if the media comes is portrayed as someone who can also do positive things and not just talk about the sport and then talk about the negative stuff, that's a good thing, because they only talk about the positive things, like doing the playoffs, doing championship games, or doing something. But they could do like they have, I think it's these shows that have like Sunday talks, and who cares about the Sunday? Talk about something else where these athletes are doing something good.
Mhm.
That's my soapbox thing. I'm sorry, I get on that and it
Oh,
pisses me off, because
that's
the
good.
media is so powerful that I feel like they always take care of the big dogs, but they never take care of the little dogs. And I mean, little dogs are athletes that really give back, who don't have the access to major corps like the big dogs do.
No, that's so good, because my ultimate goal is to create stories that inspire, encourage, and uplift.
Mm-hmm.
I'm I can't write negative stories, no matter how many times people have tried to get me to do it. It's just not in my heart. I just feel as if I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I know people that have been through too much for me to feel like I contribute to the negativity. That's why this mental health piece is more about bringing awareness to it, but also
Yeah.
talking about the solutions. I hate when people just talk about the problems and not talk about
Mm-hmm.
the solutions. that's what the media is. They just talk about the problems, problems, problems all day long, but no one offers a solution. And so that's what this project is basically about, and show other people that you like, everyone goes through it. Like, I mean, look, you are you. So when someone reads this, they're gonna be like, wow, like he went through the same thing I went through. Like it's
Yeah.
possible for me to overcome and achieve and walk my way out of darkness, you know? So
Hmm.
um, no, that was good. I have two more questions and then I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
Are you busy? But I really wanted to talk about this past summer with the George Floyd, the social justice movement, all of that, especially the NBA doing what they did. Just kind of what did you see, you know, being a fly on the wall, and what did you experience through that time of last year, of last summer?
Uh, it's weird how when you speak from your heart, you become famous. I was like, wow, we went on our show, and I was talking about how how crazy it is that we have to still go through all this stuff, and I don't think people understand. Growing up in the South, when I grew up, how hard it was, and how stuff was you're supposed to accept it, and then you have kids, and then you get into a position where you feel like you made it out, but at the end of the day, you didn't make it out of your skin. You're still a black man in America who doesn't always get treated the same as other people. And for me to talk about how I say how I just want my kids to come home to me at the end of the day, and I don't care what the cop says to you. I want you to come home to me and we'll deal with it later. And it was a hard time because it made me think about all the times for me growing up that you have these situations that pop up because you're black. Then you have the good ones and you have the bad ones. And I think it's weird also how, because I remember having a friend, I don't say a friend, a person was talking, and he was like, "Oh, you're not black." I'm like, "You're not like them." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm black and I'm an athlete. You really have to worry about me because I got strength in a lot of different ways." And it's like, he's like, "Oh, you're not like the other N words." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And it's weird because, when you play a sport, you kind of take a foot out of being a certain black, like a black man. It's weird. Like, it's hard to explain unless you experience it. But and sometimes a lot of people don't. I was like, "Well, you're who you are." But at the end of the day, I'm still a black man. I still have black kids that might not be in a position of one day being in power. And so you have to, you know, be careful of, what happens with you because it's going to happen to them. And it was just, it's so emotional, so hard when I think about that because I had growing up in the South and having streets you can't walk down. Think and this is in 1970. I was born in 1970, so this is 1970 to I don't know to maybe when I left 1988. It started getting a better streets you can't walk down. You were only allowed 3 black cheerleaders on the team, and I was so proud that my senior year in high school we had 4. We went from 3 to 4, and we actually went around and you don't even think about it back then because you hear about what Martin Luther King did, MLK did. You think of all these things, they didn't even teach about Malcolm X in high school because they probably didn't want us to be militant because that's probably how we would have turned out. But I remember, we going around. It's like my graduation class was 130. I think about maybe 20% of the school was black. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing that number out there. And I remember us going around and say, "Oh, you voting for Michelle?" Because coach's daughter was always going to make high school basketball coach. I was going to be a cheerleader regardless. She was going to be one. And then we had the most popular black girl. She was going to be one. We had the girl who was athletic. She was going to be one. We had this girl, Michelle. Her name's not Michelle. I'm just going to say Michelle because I don't want, people to, but she had no, she didn't have any athletic ability. She was cute, but if you go about skill set, she shouldn't have been a cheerleader. But we only had 4 to go out, and we like, "Yo, y'all gonna vote her in." And you should have seen us in the auditorium. We strategically sat her in different places and said, "Oh, you're gonna vote for Michelle." and they all voted for Michelle, and she made it. Even though if you look as far as talent, she shouldn't have been a cheerleader, but we was trying to break that barrier, man. It was just trying to like, okay, we're not going to do this, And I remember even before that, playing baseball, where you only allowed 3 blacks on the All-Star team. I tell this story all the time. My last year in Babe Ruth, I didn't make the All-Star team because one of the coaches from another team called me boy, and I looked at him like he was crazy. I said, because a foul ball was hit near him. I said, can you throw that back to me? He said, you come pick it up, boy. I stood there. I'm like, I ain't gonna pick the ball up. You right there. And I didn't make the All-Star team. And it was so crazy. And we could only have 3 blacks on the All-Star team. And then when we got to Babe Ruth, it was the same way. And I remember we had 4 that year, and none of us played. And I remember us yelling at the coach. It was a guy who was in the same class as my brother, cool dude too. And I remember him standing in the corner crying because he couldn't do anything because the powers that be told him he could not play the black kids. And it was just one of the things and that let me know right there that all white people aren't bad. And you can't judge. That's what I hate, when people judge every person by the faults of one person that's of that same race. And you can't do that. I know this guy was a good guy. He literally cried because he said, I can't do anything because I'm doing what the powers that be told me to do. And there was little moments like that throughout my life that made me realize that, everybody's not bad because of who they are. You can't judge every black person because of this something another black person did or something another white person did or something. Each individual has his own path. Each individual is going to do what they want to do. And now coming back to the present and seeing everything that happened in NBA with the Black Lives Matter movement, um, I was happy with it, but I knew it was going to fade away. That's how it always is. It's like, okay, because it's in your face now, you're going to talk about it. Think about it. The only person we really should be talking about is Kaepernick. He dedicated his career. He lost his career because of that. We had this one moment where guys get on their knees and then last for a season, but now they're like, oh, we can't go back to that. Like, why not? Did we go? We still in the process of still trying to heal as America. We're still in the process of trying to make everybody know what's going on in the communities of the social injustice. It's almost like it got worse. We kneeled for a year and then it just made everybody just, get angry and want to be worse, and that and it's just for me, I just feel like it's never gonna be enough until we all the same color, and there's and I don't think that's gonna happen, no time soon. But the Black Lives Matter movement was special for a year, but Black Lives Matters movement, it should happen all year. The Asian Lives Matter movement should happen all year. The White Lives Matter should happen. And what I mean by that is saying all lives matter, and everybody should treat each other, like they want to be treated. And for me, when it comes to the Black Lives Matter, I just knew it was going to die down. And exactly what it did, it died down. Think about it. You have this season where it's one of the probably the most exciting seasons ever because of so many new guys stepping up and playing. Okay, we're gonna talk about that, yeah, but it's only a couple of those guys that aren't the big dogs that's still talking about social injustice. I don't care if you're talking about it after the game, because you know what? After the game, the media can elect to play that or not play that. They have the ability to, oh, we're gonna nix that out. But now during a game, if you kneeling before a game, when national TV see you kneeling for a game, it puts it back on the people's mind that this matters. And for me, I really hate the fact that they only use it during the bubble. It's not fair. I think if we have to sit up in here and before every game, listen to the national anthem and have to do all these things, why shouldn't it to keep us reminding us how special this country is? We should also, have that little mark where we let this country special, but every life in this country that helped build this country matters. So if a player wants to kneel, to put that back on your mind that, hey, there's still some issues with, police brutality in the Black neighborhood. There's still some issues with social injustice. Let him do that. And they didn't. And that was my whole problem with the Black Lives Matter movement, because I knew it's going to fade because, that's how it is. This world is fads. And that was a fad to kneel like Cap. And now it's going to, and fads fade, and it faded. And I just hate that it's faded because I don't want the memory of George Floyd and all the other Breonna Taylor and all these other people who lost their lives senselessly to fade. You can't let it happen. So I feel like the NBA should always have
Mhm.
something to let the athletes express themselves.
I agree. I agree.
Mm.
I 110% agree. My last question, I wanted to ask about your legacy when it's all said and done. When it's all said and done and you are no longer on this earth, when people look back, I mean, everything, the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, the ugly, when they look back and say, oh, that was Robert Orr, what do you want your legacy on this earth to be remembered by?
You know, I've never even thought about that because this is going to sound outside the box. I don't believe in athletes having legacies, you know, and I think they should have a whole nother category because to me, I've always felt like legacies belong to, when you use the word legacy, it belongs to people like MLK, um, uh, you know, Obama, Lincoln, you know, all these people who changed, you know, life, not made an impact on a sport, you know. But when they do, but then again, I turn around and says, you know what? I do have a legacy because the word legacy can mean so many different things for so many different people. And my outlook on that had just it's just starting to change now when I'm looking at my kids and watching them grow up and try to become who they are. And I like their future has a lot to do with how my legacy is. You know, they're gonna get judged by who I was and what I did, and it's not fair to them, but that's just how it is. And I just want my legacy to be a guy who is intelligent in a lot of different areas. And for me, I think the greatest compliment I ever had was when I took uh, one of my kids to see a Laker game after I retired, and Kobe Bryant looked at Cameron and was like, "Yo, man, what's up? I hadn't seen you. Wow." I said, "You playing basketball?" He says, "I'm trying." And he says, "Your dad is one of the smartest players I ever played with, so listen to him." And for me, it's little moments like that make you realize that you left an impact. So when you talk about legacy, you just want to leave an impact on the people you played with, the people who coached you, and the people you came in contact with me. I think when you really want to go back, I think my legacy started in high school when I had a guy named James Fagan. I remember we had just lost in the state tournament, and I'm sitting in Coleman Coliseum at the University of Alabama. You think in my senior year I lost, and I'm sitting up like in 300 level by myself. He literally, James walks up there because my high school coach, he loved to watch the game. So we were all scattered around. He walks up there. I'm like, I sat up there because I'm not even gonna lie, I was crying. I was crying because my high school career was over and it was time to start a new chapter in my life. So I'm sitting there, he walks up there. He just comes up to me and says, "Yo, man, I just want to say thank you. I had a great time playing with you and I learned a lot from you." And this is me being a senior, and this guy was a junior in high school. And he comes to me and just tells me, "Thank you for playing with him." And, and you don't, as a kid, you think I'm 17 years old. You really don't at that time understand how impactful that was until you get later on in life. Like, well, damn, I must have left a mark on him. I must have did something that made him appreciate me. And so I think for me, when it boils down to legacy, is how you leave a mark on people, how you impact people and in a positive way. Because you're going to impact some people in a negative way. And I love the fact that I do have a legacy and impact the people in a negative way in the sense that some killer last shots, to make people mad and make their franchise go home for the summer. And that part that's cool too. But I think deep down in my soul, what means the most to me is how your teammates and your coaches perceive you. Now I've impactful in the sense that one of the smartest players you ever played with, a guy who gave you your all, a guy who was there for you at all time, great teammate, durable teammate. Because at the end of the day, all this stuff doesn't really matter. It's just the only thing that really matters is how your kids are going to move on from what you left behind. And I think for the fact that if they have someone who can come to them and say your daddy was intelligent, your daddy was respectful, and your daddy was always there for his teammates. I think for me, that legacy would be the greatest because that's how my life was. I played a sport. That's how I made my money. I played a sport. And that's what led me to be who I am because, sports are so impactful to the upbringing of people and how you learn how to deal with other people in life and how you communicate. And so it taught me a lot and it made me, you know, part of who I am. The other part was made by my parents. So as far as legacy go, I just want to be remembered as, the guy who had fun, the guy who was smart, the guy who did everything he could to win. And at the end of the day, he was a flat out winner. That's how I wanted to be. I was a winner.
Yes. Good. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I enjoyed this. This was so
You're
good.
welcome.
Um,
See, like you see how you called me at my essence, like no haircut, I haven't shaved,
no,
and the
it's
season's
okay.
over, so I'm
It's
just
okay.
chilling.
It's
Oh, I
okay.
don't care. It's just me being me, y'all natural.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Embrace all the natural, embrace your
Mhm.
downtime. And just relax.